Hi everyone, I am Dr.V.VIJI, Associate Professor, PG and Research Department of Economics, A.D.M. College for Women, Nagapattinam. Today we have to going to see new Keynesian theory of employment. First we have to know the meaning and introduction of this theory. New Keynesian economics is the school of thought in modern macroeconomics that differs from the traditional Keynesian principles and adjusts and reformulates them in response to their criticisms of the new classical economists. Some of the leading new Keynesian economists are George Mankiw, Robert Gordon, David Romer, Oliver Blanchard, Lawrence Summers, Joseph Stiglitz, and Bruce Greenwald. Here we have to see the differences between new classical and the new Keynesian macroeconomics. New classical and new Keynesian economists differ over the following issues. First one, new classical economists argued that Keynesian economics was theoretically inadequate because it was not based on microeconomic foundations. According to them, macroeconomic models should be based on firm microeconomic foundations. New Keynesians agree on this, but they differ how markets work. New classical economics base their models on perfectly competitive consumer. Producer and labor markets, on the other hand, new Keynesians base their models on the real world imperfectly competitive. On producers and labor market, participants operates with imperfect information markets where consumers. New classical base their theories on market clearing models where demand and supply adjust quickly on the assumption that wages and prices are flexible. New Keynesians believe that market clearing models cannot explain short-run economic fluctuations, so they base their models. New Keynesian economics differs from new classical economics in explaining aggregate fluctuations in terms of microeconomic foundations. The new classical explains the forces at work in terms of rational choices made by households and firms. But in new Keynesian analysis, households and firms do not coordinate their choices without cost, and coordination costs lead to coordination failure. New classical and new Keynesians also differ over the nature of equilibrium. In new classical models, markets clear continuously and wages and prices adjust quickly, so that the quantity of labor demanded equals the quantity of labor supplied, and there is full employment equilibrium. But in new Keynesian models, wages and prices fail to adjust rapidly enough to clear markets within a short time, so as to keep the quantity demanded of labor equal to its quantity supplied. But this is an unemployment equilibrium. Economists call it disequilibrium or low employment equilibrium. In fact, in new Keynesian economics, the actual quantities of labor demanded and supplied do not balance, but the expected quantities of labor demanded and supplied balance. New classical and new Keynesians differ substantially over the use of stabilization policy. The new classical analysis hold that which rational expectations and flexible prices and wages, and the anticipated changes in aggregate demand will have no effect on output and employment in the short run by following a systematic monetary policy. This is the policy ineffective position. Therefore, new classical economists adequate monetary rules and avoidance of discretionary monetary policy to prevent unanticipated changes in aggregate demand when unemployment deviates from the natural level. In new Keynesian economics, when there decrease in aggregate demand due to wage and price rigidities and market failures, active monetary and fiscal policies can prevent a fall in output and employment. Now let us see the main features of new Keynesian economics. Main features of new Keynesian economics was conceived in late 1970s, but several standards have evolved in new Keynesian macroeconomic theories models since mid-1980s. Some of the important standards are discussed under 4 broad headings. First one is sticky nominal wages, sticky nominal prices, sticky real wages. The last one is coordination failures. Now let us see one by one. Sticky nominal wages. In the classical theory of labor market, there is always full employment in the economy and no involuntary unemployment. In case of unemployment, a cut in money wages can achieve full employment. Firms can instantly adjust the quantities of labor they employ without any cost because of the flexibility of money wages. In the Keynesian theory, involuntary unemployment exists, which can be removed by cut in real wages by increasing aggregate demand, output and employment. Keynes held that money wages are sticky. Within the Keynesian tradition, new Keynesian economists have developed the new Keynesian theory of the labor market based on nominal wages stickiness. This theory based on some principles. First one is, this theory is based on the following assumptions. First one is, nominal wages are sticky in the labor market. Next one is, they are set on the basis of contracts for a stipulated period. Next one is, they are set to make the expected quantity of labor demanded equal the expected quantity of labor. Trade unions and firms form a rational expectation of future demand and supply of labor. They agree on a wage that makes the expected quantity of labor demanded equal to the expected demand of the product. Quantity supplied on the average over the period of contracts. Firms determine the employment level. Workers are prepared to supply the required quantity of labor demanded at the fixed money wage over the period of the contract. The employment level is determined by the actual demand for labor. Given these assumptions, in the new Keynesian theory of the labor market, money wages are set in contracts between workers and employers, which maintain money wage over an agreed period. Such contracts are made because the demand for labor increases during recoveries and decreases during recessions, which required changes in wage rates. Therefore, workers and employers find such wage contracts advantages because there are high costs of collecting information about labor and negotiating frequent wage agreements. Now let us see the diagrammatical explanation of this theory. Here we have to take the vertical axis represents money wage level. Horizontal axis represents quantity of labor. Here the demand curve is shifted from D1, D0, D2. As usual supply, here we have to see two more equilibriums. One is E, another one is E1. During the period of contract, the effective supply of labor market is, which shows the contract wage rate of OW. Workers agree to supply the quantity is the horizontal line demand at this decontracted wage rate. In the figure, S is the expected supply curve of labor and is the expected demand. Demand curve for labor, these curves meet at point E on the agreed money wage rate OW0, where the expected labor employed is OQ0. If the demand for labor happens to be more than expected at the quantity of labor employed increases to OQ2. Then the demand also shifted to D2. If the demand for labor happens to be D1, the labor employed fall to OQ1. The above analysis shows that the quantity of labor employed depends on the expected demand for labor. The expected demand for labor is determined by the expected price level and the expected forecast is about the marginal product of labor, that is MPL. In turn, determines the quantity of labor which the firms will employ at each possible real wage rate. Similarly, the expected about the number of Keynesian workers available for work at different real wage supply rates. Staggered wage contract theory. One of the theories of nominal wage rigidities in the new Keynesian analysis is of staggered contracts. In the staggered contracts approach, not all labor unions sign contracts at the same time. There is no synchronization of contracts. Contracts are renewed at various times so that the dates on which new contracts start are staggered and they overlap. Such overlapping long-term wage contracts lead to nominal wage rigidity. During the contract period, the wage rate is fixed and linked to the expected rate of inflation by price indexing. If prices are expected too high, workers will demand larger wage increases and firms will be willing to pay them because their own prices are expected to rise. Besides, expectations of inflation, wage fixation is influenced by expectations of wages paid to other workers and the level of employment. According to Taylor, in his staggered contract approach, takes aggregate nominal demand indexation as a source of nominal wage rigidity. He assumes the nominal wage fixed over the period of contracts at a level that depends on the expected price and expected future demand and output. A monetary disturbance affects demand and output during the period of contract until a new contract is negotiated. Demand and output. This requires a proportionate adjustment in suppose the monetary authorities reduce the money supply in the economy, which reduces aggregate demand and output. This makes in nominal wages to maintain full employment is very slow in response to changes in aggregate demand and output. This makes nominal wages sticky. Mankin's sticky prices model, here it has some menu costs. The classical and markets by adjusting demand and supply quickly, not clear quickly. Other hand, believe in the stickiness of prices in the short run. Markets do not clear quickly prices. It is costly frequently adjusting prices of their goods involved cost to firms. A large sector of is made up of price makers who sell goods in monopolistic adjusting prices is costly or imperfectly competitive markets for it flexibility of because adjusting prices is costly. The cost of adjusting prices are called the menu cost. Changing prices requires the use of resources by a firm. It has to print new price lists, catalogs and other printed material. A supermarket has to reliable all products and solves the new prices. A hotel and a restaurant has to reprint its menu with the new prices. Meetings, phone calls and trips by representatives of a firm to renegotiated with suppliers all fall under the category of menu cost. In the menu costs approach to sticky prices, it is profitable for firms to react to small changes in demand by keeping prices constant over a short period and responding with the changes in output. Because of menu costs, firms do not change their prices every time, which a change in demand conditions. Menu costs are incurred each time prices are changed periodically rather than continuously. This menu costs explain the short-run stickiness of price. In the menu cost hypothesis, prices adjust slowly because changes in prices have externalities. When one firm reduces the price of a product, it benefits other firms in the economy. When it reduces the prices it charges, it lowers the average price level slightly and thereby raises real income. The increase in real income in turn raises the demand for the products of all firms. This macroeconomic impact of one firm's price adjustment on the demand for the products of all other firms is called an aggregate demand. Externally, by Mankiw, with the aggregate demand externally, small menu cost can make prices. This theory based some assumptions. The sticky nominal price analysis of menu cost is based on the following assumption. There is an imperfectly competitive market which consists of number of monopolistic competitive firms. Firms produce standardized or differentiated products. Firms or price makers have some control over the prices of their products. Price adjustments involve costs for firms. The demand curves are linear. The marginal cost curve is horizontal. Now let us see the diagrammatical explanation of this theory. Here vertical axis represents price, horizontal axis represents the quantity. Here we have to take different levels of demand and marginal revenue. Here we have to take marginal revenue line and marginal cost line, and also we have to assess the demand of the product. Given this assumption, we illustrate the figure how menu costs work and affect the adjustment of price and the quantity of the firm's product. Let us suppose that the firm's demand has declined so that the original demand curve D0 shift to the left to D1 and correspondingly its original marginal revenue curve to MR similarly its marginal cost has also declined. It has been shown as MC, which remains fixed. The original marginal cost curve MC has not been shown to simplify the figure. The original price is OP and the quantity is OQ when MR intersect MC at point E. The firm's profit is KEAP. With the decline in demand, the intersection of MR and MC is at F0 and the price falls to OP and quantity to OQ1. Consequently, profit declines to KFCP. If the menu costs are high, the firm will keep the price at OP, reduce output to OQ and earn KGBP profit. This theory has some criticism. The menu cost approach has been criticized on the following grounds. The menu cost approach is defective in that it considers only cost of price adjust and not cost of output adjustment. This approach assumes that the marginal cost moves in proportion with the demand. As demand rises or falls, marginal cost also increases or declines in the same proportion. In fact, so no firm can assume that its marginal cost will be perfectly correlated with its aggregate demand. This hypothesis tries to explain nominal rigidities in adjustment of the level of prices, but it fails to explain rigidities in adjustments of the rate of change of prices. Critics point out that menu costs are small and have become smaller as consumers allow the printing of menus at a small marginal cost. Economists do not agree that menu cost can explain price thickness in the short run because they are very small. Small menu cost cannot explain recession in the economy. Another flaw is that small menu costs may be important for an individual firm, but they are unlikely to affect the economy as a whole. Sticky real wages. In the new classical labor theory, labor market is cleared continuously at the market clearing real wage rate, but it is not explained involuntary unemployment. On the other hand, the new Keynesian theories focus on the real wage rigidity, where workers are not paid. Market clearing, wage and involuntary unemployment exist even in the long run. There are four main approaches to real wage rigidities. They are asymmetric information model, implicit contract theory, insider-outsider theory, and efficiency wage theory. Asymmetric information model. Asymmetric information is a situation in which some person have more information about some things than other. This idea that each person has asymmetrical information relative to other was used to develop. Labor market model by Grossman and Hart, they assumed that managers know more about the interests of the firm than do the workers. Given this better knowledge, it is possible and profitable for managers to deceive the workers about the real position of the firm. They enter into contracts with the workers for employment commitments, whereby the firm pay them rigid real wages. However, there is an employment commitment in this model that tends to increase the amount of employment in the firm. Implicit contract theory. Two American economists, Bailey and Azardas, have developed the implicit contract theory. Usually, employment contracts between workers and the firm are explicit agreements. But often there are other dimensions that are not written in the actual contracts. These dimensions are called implicit contracts. Workers and firms enter into the implicit contracts concern job insurance and income because workers are risk averse with respect to income. Workers dislike the risk arising from income and fluctuations of employment more than the firms. Consequently, firms offer workers an implicit contracts that is partially an income and job insurance contract and partially an employment contract. According to Bailey and Azardas, such contracts leads to rigidity in real wage that are not affected by fluctuations in business condition and employment levels during a recession. Insider and outsider theory. This insider and outsider theory of labor market was developed by Lindbergh and Snover. This theory assumes that there are frictions and imperfections in the labor market that act to divide is in terms of employment opportunities. Insider are those workers who already have jobs, and outsiders are those who are unemployed in the labor market. Insider are represented by unions who have more say in wage bargaining than the insider. Outsider union negotiations the real wage with firms and set it higher than the market clearing level, so that the outsiders are excluded from jobs, leading to involuntary unemployment in the presence of fall in aggregate demand. Efficiency wage theories. In new Keynesian economists, payment of efficiency wage leads to real wage. Rigidity and the failures of market clearing mechanism. High wage increase efficiency and productivity of workers. Despite an excess supply of labor, firms do not cut wages even though such a move would increase their profits. Firms also do not cut wages because it would lower productivity and raise costs. So, it is in the interest of firms to set the real wage above the market clearing level. Such a wage is called the efficiency wage. Turnover cost theory. According to this theory, the real wage is set to minimize turnover costs of firms. Turnover costs include the cost of firing and hiring workers and the training of new workers. It is profitable for firms to reduce such costs by paying high real wages above the market clearing wages. Firms can prevent experienced and efficient workers from leaving the firm to join other firms. It can also reduce recruiting costs to replace such workers and cost of training new workers. Selection theory. Firms do not know the quality of workers at the time of selection. Firms have imperfect information about potential workers at the time of hiring them. Selection procedure being costly, firms always try to select higher quality workers. Good quality workers have a higher reservation wage than low quality workers. If a firm pays below the reservation wage, it will not attract good quality workers. On the job efficiency or gift exchange theory, another efficiency wage theory is that a real wage above the market clearing wage improves on the job efficiency of workers. A higher wage improves the physical well-being of the workers. Their consumption level increases. They can afford better nutritional food and become more healthy. This improves their efficiency and raises their productivity. The shrinking theory. The shrinking theory is based on the premise that firms cannot easily monitor the work effort of workers and that workers themselves decide how hard to work. Two options are available to a worker, shrinking and no shrinking. Shrinking workers, if caught by the management, are fired, dismissed. Workers know that if fired, they are not likely to get employment immediately at the existing wages. The firm can encourage workers not to strip work by paying a higher wage. This theory based on the following assumptions. Workers either have job or are unemployed. Those workers who strike work are fired. The fired workers do not find employment immediately and remain unemployed for some time. Those workers who receive the efficiency wage do not strike. There is always unemployment in the labor market at the efficiency wage. Now let us see the diagrammatical explanation of this theory. Here, vertical axis represents real wage, horizontal axis represents employment. Here we have to assess the demand and supply curve, then one more employment curve, that is NS. Here we have to see two more equilibriums, E and E1. Given this assumption, this efficiency wage theory is explained in figure where S is labor supply curve and demand is the labor demand curve. These curves meet at point E, where OL. Workers are employed in the firm who are working at OW wage rate. The labor demand curve assumes that these workers do not interfere the strike work, but the management finds that some workers strike work, so they are fired and are unemployed. Since the firm has incurred cost of recruitment and training of some workers, it will ensure that they do not strike for this. It pays a higher wage to them, which is the no striking or efficiency wage. At this wage, there is always the threat of being fired and becoming unemployed. This includes workers not to strike in the figure. NS is the no striking labor supply curve, which intersects the labor demand curve at point E1. OW is the efficiency wage at which OL. Workers are employed under L1. Workers remain unemployed who are fired for striking. Thank you.